Okay, good afternoon, folks. We'll get the meeting underway. Before we begin today's meeting, Seguin Township acknowledges that we are on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe peoples in the Huron-Robinson Treaty Area. We recognize and respect the long history of First Nations and Métis peoples on this land and this region, and that this region continues to be home to many thriving First Nations communities that have lived on Turtle Island for time immemorial. Seguin Township is committed to ongoing learning, responsible stewardship of our planet, and building relationships to help create a better future for generations to come. So I require a mover and seconder, please, to convene the meeting. Moved by Lee, seconded by Wibb. That the Committee of Adjustment for the Corporation of the Township of Seguin hereby convenes at 4 p.m. on Wednesday, March 12th, 2025. All in favor? And carried. The Committee of Adjustment hereby convenes a public meeting as per the Planning Act. Applicants and the public may speak at the public meeting. When asked who wishes to speak to an application, please raise your hand, state your name and address, and direct all comments through me. Notice of decisions will be sent to applicants and to the public if requested. Only the prescribed persons as per the Planning Act may appeal a decision or condition of approval within 20 days after the decision. Reminder to folks joining remotely, please keep your mic on mute unless you're speaking to the committee. So mover and seconder, please, to accept the agenda for today. Moved by Len, seconded by Greg. That the Committee of Adjustment for the Corporation of the Township of Seguin hereby approves the agenda for the March 12th, 2025 hearing. All in favor? And carried. And once again, a mover and seconder, please, to approve the minutes of the last meeting. Moved by Lee, seconded by Greg. That the Committee of Adjustment for the Corporation of the Township of Seguin hereby accepts as read and circulated the minutes of its last hearing, which took place Wednesday, February the 12th, 2025. All in favor? Yes, sir.
Your mic with.
Number 7B, with regard to McKenna. I spoke to Kara, but I don't know if the message got through or not, but I'm just looking at the resolution number there, and it talks about constructing a detached garage with storage area above. And I know that we had decided it was below. So I don't know if that matters or not, but.
We can amend that. And recirculate the minutes then.
You want to recirculate them, or we'll just approve as
Okay.
amended?
Yeah.
Okay. Sure. All right, sorry, folks, small change, so. And we'll just insert here and amended. So one more time, that the Committee of Adjustment for the Corporation of the Township of Seguin hereby accepts as read, circulated, and amended the minutes of its last hearing that took place on Wednesday, February 12th, 2025. All in favor? And carried. Disclosure of pecuniary interest. Does anyone have any conflicts to declare with today's meeting? None heard. So we'll move into the hearings. If the Secretary Treasurer will please introduce our first application.
The purpose of minor variance application A-2024-0039H Cosma is to construct a new dock on the subject lands requiring a variance for projection of a dock. Correspondence in objection to the application was received from multiple neighboring property owners.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Who do we have in attendance that wishes to speak to the application? Do I see Debbie? Yes, please go ahead.
I do, through you. Good afternoon, committee. My name is Debbie Vandenacker. I am a senior planner with Planscape out of Bracebridge, 104 Kimberley Avenue, P1L 1Z8. Planscape was retained by the applicant shortly after the statutory public meeting held on November 13th, 2024. At that time, the applicants wanted to ensure any planning related questions or concerns that were raised at that meeting were properly addressed prior to the committee's decision. I acknowledge the form letters that were also submitted as a result of the revised request, and they will be addressed through this presentation, I hope. Since the November meeting, the Cosmas retained a professional surveyor to ensure that the dock did not project out any farther than necessary at a reasonable depth. The survey has revealed some deeper water at the center of the lot, which directed the location of the dock to the center to take advantage of the surveyed deeper water. By reducing the original proposed length and turning the dock clockwise, they were able to reduce the original proposed length from 23.3 meters to 20 meters. The requested variance is now 5 meters from what the bylaw permits, but in reality, the applicants have an existing 17-meter dock structure right now. So it does represent 3 meters in reality. The new dock will only extend out the additional 3 meters than what currently exists. The applicants were able to do this as the surveyor indicated the high water mark and then surveyed where the 1.22 meter water depth was. So I didn't know this before I was reviewing this, but 1.22 meters is the common depth associated with the draft of a boat, sorry. So the mooring portion of the dock begins at that 1.22 meter mark that was surveyed to ensure adequate boat clearance. It's important to note that our data shows that the water level of Lake Rosso on the date of the survey, which was beginning of December, is the same as the lake level in August. So it represents sort of that summer water level. We know lake levels drop significantly in the fall, but they do rise according to the projected data that we have. With respect to the proper assessment of a minor variance application, I have read the staff report and we share the same policy review, analysis and professional planning opinions as your staff. They recommended approval. It's our opinion that that is appropriate. The first two tests seek to confirm if the application follows the general intent and purpose of the official plan and the zoning bylaw. Simply put, docks are permitted accessory structures on waterfront properties. And although the official plan does not contain specific policies related to dock lengths, normally these types of requests are reviewed to determine if there are any negative impacts to the natural environment and/or navigation. There is no identified sensitive fish habitat along the frontage of this property. The proposed modest extension and relocation will reduce the possible impact on the lake bottom, which results from mooring the boat in the current structure. The application will maintain the quality of the lake through a reduction in impacts to the lake bottom in the shallow depths as a result of boating and maintaining the character of the and it will maintain the character of the shoreline area. So the third minor variance test is to determine if the application is desirable and appropriate for the specific lot. Docks are, again, a permitted structure as of right and an appropriate and desirable development on the shoreline. When reviewing the lot configuration along the shoreline, it's clearly noted that this lot is lower. I'm going to air quote lower, and hopefully that is sort of understood in what I'm talking about in 2D here. A 3-meter extension does not have an impact on navigation when you compare it to the location of the neighboring docks that extend out into the water along the same shoreline. So figure 3 in our planning letter and the key map, or which is figure 1 in the staff report, illustrate that this property is slightly inset from its neighbors on either side. And we've gone through the exercise of projecting a 20-meter structure out into the water on an aerial photograph to just see if it projects farther, and it does not appear that there would be any navigation impacts from this structure. So, and finally is just some context. Shoreline docks projecting out 20 meters is very common on Lake Rosso and the larger lakes. The final test asks if the request is minor. So this is the fourth test of a minor variance. Focusing on the numerical deviation from a specific zoning provision, it can't be the only determination. That's not how it is assessed in the land use planning world. The application should focus on the potential for negative impacts. And so a dock at 17 meters or 20 meters will not have any impacts to the natural environment and or the neighboring properties. or navigation along the stretch of shoreline. The extension of the dock may offer improvements to water quality in the area, as there'll be less impact from the shallow water depths and the boat causing that stir from the bottom of the lake. So in conclusion, we share the same professional planning opinion as your staff. The application has been refined based on the survey work requested that has allowed the applicants to reduce the size of the variance that is requested. The revised proposal is much closer to the zoning bylaw requirements. It does not impact the natural environment and fits in with the surrounding neighborhood. In my opinion, the application clearly meets the 4 tests to be reviewed for a minor variance application as required under the Planning Act, as staff has comprehensively stated in the report. I understand that there are neighbor concerns. I hope I have addressed some of them through my presentation. I also acknowledge that there is often a lack of clarity for members of the public in land use planning, how things are described, what the intent of these policies really means in terms of land use planning. So I'm happy to clear those up as well if there are any questions. So I would respectfully request approval of this application as per staff's recommendation, and I'm happy to answer any questions anyone may have. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Debbie. Please stand by for questions from the committee. Committee members, questions for Debbie. Wib, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I noticed in the report that was done by Stefan that he says here the applicant already has the ability to replace their existing legal non-complying 17-meter long dock. Therefore, the request for extension of 3 meters, blah, blah, blah. How do we know this? How do we know this is a legal non-complying dock? And that's a question one of the people that are not happy with the process have asked as well. They don't feel it's legal, non-complying. And not that it makes a lot of difference to the application, but the statement was made, so I'm just trying to get some clarity.
Is that directed to me?
Well, if you have an answer, otherwise I'll turn it over to our planning staff.
Please, if staff would like to answer, that's fine. I'm happy to as well.
Okay, go ahead, please,
Through
Brady. Yeah.
you, Mr. Chair. So legal non-complying status, to gain that, you either need to ensure that you have a building permit for the structure, or it was built prior to the existing zoning bylaw. The variance, however, is for an additional 5 meters, not an additional 3. So this variance is for from 15 to 20, not from 17 to 20, just to clear that up.
Just to finish that off, I just thought it odd to make that comment because there isn't any evidence that I'm aware of that it is a legal non-complying dock. So really, the fact that it's 17 meters now, I'm not sure how it got there and whether they had a permit or not, but even so, it's still not legal. So just saying.
Yeah, and just to express that again, the variance is for 5 meters from 15 to 20.
Okay.
One other point.
Yes.
One of the people that are on the other side of this application made the comment that Ian and Sandra Marshall made the comment in their submission that all the water depth data in the revised application is incorrect. Just thought somebody might want to speak to that.
Debbie, do you have a clarification for that?
Certainly, through you. So this, the water depths were surveyed by I believe it's IBI. Sorry, bear with me for 1 second while I pull that IBI. So it was a professional surveying company that did that work. And so I would bow to their professional status. They are the experts in that.
So just if I can jump in for a second, Wib, just on that point, it's unclear to me whether they did actual physical measurements. Did they actually do lead line or, physical measurements, or how were these measurements arrived at?
I believe so. What I'm looking at is the signed and stamped IBW, sorry, not IBI, IBW surveyors, signed and stamped. So I quite frankly, do I know their methodology for going out and maybe sticking a stick in the lake? I don't. I genuinely don't know how that they do that. I just know that it is signed by a professional surveyor. So presumably their methods are appropriate.
Okay, thank you. Other questions?
I got one more.
Oh, sorry, just let's let Wib finish. Go ahead, Wib.
The same people, the marshals, made the comment that if the dock was moved to the east, it would be in deeper water and therefore wouldn't need to be as long. And I'm not familiar with it enough to know whether that's true or not, but I just wondered if you had any comments on that. And I do understand that one of the reasons I believe that the applicants didn't wish to move the dock to that area is because it would be directly in front of their cottage.
Thank you. Through the chair, I cannot speak to why they didn't do that, other than it has been confirmed to me that the water depth was more appropriate in the center. They reached deeper water sooner, and so that steered their decision to put the dock in the center.
Next question, please. Len, you've got your hand up. Go ahead, please.
Am I on?
Yes.
It is my understanding in looking at all of the people who sent in objections that they did suggest that this be submitted to professional surveyors, and they mentioned the surveyor that was indeed engaged. So I think both parties seem to be in agreement with that particular company, because the company did this, I understand, on December the 7th. Is that correct?
Through the chair, December 11th.
Thank you.
So that came after.
Plan
on,
is
Len.
signed.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Len.
No, that's all I wanted to do.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
So
Well, my point is that it's data that both sides seem to want the same company to do.
okay. Thank you, Len. Lee, go ahead, please.
All the issues regarding depth aside, these lakes are controlled by that dam down at Bala to supply the hydro generating plants. There's 3 of them at Bala and 2 on the Musquash. And that's going to have a massive, or cause a massive variation all through the year. So somebody here said it was a 2-foot difference. You know, I would kind of argue that, but it's going to be significant what's going to happen all year long. And you're never going to be able, that they did it on the 11th of December is great. It could be massively different as the power companies need water. They're going to open those dams. It happens on the lake that I live on. And at one point, the exit is a little trickle. There's no more water left. And below my dock is about 15 inches. And at high water, the waves are lapping over the docks on either side of me, regardless of the time of year. It just happens. And it's I talked to the people at Lakeland Power Authority down in Bracebridge, and they look at weather events upcoming and they open the dams, and how quickly they close them determines how little water there is. And in drought conditions, there's going to be very little. So that's just an extra wrinkle to throw into the thing, for whatever it's worth.
Okay, thank you, Len. Excuse me, other questions from committee? Len, please.
Yes. As we look around the Muskoka Lakes, do we see many examples of docks with structures at the end of them? The Muskoka character seems to me to be more with the boathouse or building right on the shoreline. or next to it, not 20 meters out.
Okay, thanks for the point. Mr. Getty, please.
Thank you for my question is, you mentioned that the levels in December are similar to the levels in July. Are we talking comparatively over what period of time? Because there is no, from what I saw, there was just a listing of what the depths were on that certain day in December when the tests were done. But there's nothing within the application to show the comparative levels throughout the year, as well as what period of time we're comparing to. Do you have any more information in regards to that?
Thank you, through the chair. I can show the graph that I was basing that information on if everyone is okay with me sharing that screen.
Yes, please.
Okay. So I believe, and I do apologize that I could not, it doesn't show the source of the information on this. I believe it's a district map that was pulled, that was in our file. I asked the same question about these water depths as well. And so in my effort to understand this is what this information came up. So these are the water depths along the date. So this is July, August. And so it roughly equates to the date in December that was taken. And so you are absolutely right. There's a great deal of variability in the water depths. But as it relates to this application in terms of having an appropriate water depth to mark the standard for the survey, this represents the summer level, which I think is appropriate to do that. So hopefully that helps.
Thank you. And I'm going to take it that graph is showing the calendar year of 2024.
Yes.
So it doesn't show what the average depths are over any kind of an extended period of time.
No, this shows from January, right? It's the full year of 2024. And so just running a straight line between the summer months and here. So it wasn't a calculated average that was used. This is just basically to demonstrate that this is appropriate to summer water levels.
The summer water level in 2024.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you for clarity.
No. It's just clarity for myself, because if the water levels were historically high in July, that would be, or they could be historically low, or it could be somewhere in between the two extremes. We don't know that though, do we?
No, we don't. And I think for
Okay.
me, I just relied on the fact that we use that common 1.222 level, which is the 4-foot draft sort of level, and then looking at the impacts of the actual structure into the lake. I think that's probably where the focus, I don't think we're going to get a solid answer on that question in terms of, because this is very variable. But I think it is instructive to know that the depths that this was taken at are representative of summer months, at least in 2024.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks for that, Debbie. Further questions from committee? Okay, I'll turn it over to public audience. Does anyone have anything they would wish to?
Mr. Chair?
Sorry, Len, go ahead.
Yeah, I just looking at one of the things that we discussed at other Committee of Adjustment meetings was the character of the lake. And my question was, does this affect the character of the lake in that the structure is at the end of a dock? And that seems to be one of the major concerns of the applicants or that are appealing.
Would you like me to try to answer that?
Well, I guess I'd like to know from you and from the staff, does this characteristic of Muskoka Lakes to have this kind of structure at the end of a dock?
Certainly, I can answer from my perspective. Thank you for the question through the chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, this is common. We're out of Bracebridge. We do a lot of applications on all of the lakes, a lot of docks, a lot of boathouses. And so this is not uncommon. The length of the structure is not uncommon, especially in the big lakes. And it represents what the owners need for what they're using. So it's the U shape and the mooring and the dock. No, it's not uncommon in my experience, but staff will probably have some thoughts too.
Through you, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Brady, yes.
No additional comments to add to Debbie's comments.
And
Okay.
how about the canopy? There's some talk in that the canopy is going to be moved somewhere else from the structure. Is that true, or how exactly does the canopy fit into this?
Would it be sorry, go ahead.
There is no canopy as far as we're aware.
Yeah, thank you. So I know there was mention of a canopy during the first time this hearing was, this application was heard. I didn't see it in this round, so Debbie, if you could confirm.
Thank you. It has not been in my review. Andrew is on the line. Andrew, could you please correct us if there is a canopy involved in the application?
There's no, I'm Andrew here speaking. There was no canopy that we had contemplated at this point in time. I do know there's bylaw requirements on the size of the canopy, that if there was one being contemplated, we would be within the planning bylaws for it. I'd also like to add about the water depth discussion. The water depth came from the Rosso side of the locks, the Ministry of Natural Resources. They have a station there where they have the measurements. And I also did a 20-year average, and the mean and average where the water depths at the time we were taking matched. So because I was also concerned about the depth of water, how it moves up and down, I wanted to make sure that we were okay. So I could forward the committee the data if they want, but it is the mean and average is the same. That was a good date to do the water depths.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cosma. Any further? Mr. Getty, go ahead.
Mine really isn't a question, and I don't know whether it's appropriate before the other public input, but I guess for me on this file, the question comes down to, and the applicant has the ability for two routes to take. One is a minor variance application. The other is a zoning bylaw amendment. And the question is always the struggle for staff and the struggle for applicants and for the committee is what is a minor variance and what should require a zoning bylaw application. On face value, this is a 15-meter dock. I know it's existing as 17, but for the purpose of this, I look at it as a 15-meter dock. I think part of it is when I was on the property, there's quite a bit that is on the shore. That's almost a ramp up onto it. So, you know, the application is for an extension of I'll call it a 15-meter dock to take it to 20 meters. And while I acknowledge, you know, the efforts that have been put in by staff and by the applicant as well, this still constitutes a 33% increase to the zoning bylaw. And I know that there are, you know, the what is minor and what is not minor. For me, I see this more down the route. I see it as a zoning bylaw application because of the fact the request is 33% longer. I know that taking all the noise out of it from everything that's come in, I still see this personally as being pushing for me the limits, and having sat on the Committee of Adjustment prior to this term of council and now seeing it from the other side, it's a very fine line, and there are a number of impact factors on this. So whether I say it now or whether I say it at the end of, I know there's a couple of other people that want to speak. My concern is that this follows, and I can't remember if I asked when it was first presented, was it considered for a zoning bylaw amendment at the time of the application? And as I say, I know that the applicant has the choice to go either route. I know that staff works with the applicants to try to assist people to get what they want within their requests. So I'm not sure if it was something that was considered in the past, but for me, sitting on the committee, I see the 33% being a big ask. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. I just want to add a little bit to that, and it hasn't been talked about yet, but I see this as being it's a complicated spot to put a dock because there is such variability, first of all, in water levels, and I think that it hasn't been brought up yet, but there is the creek bringing sediment in, and I have the concern that, 3 or 4 years down the line, this application will come back for an extension because it has changed. I mean, weather is changing. We have more significant and extreme rainfall events, so it's not unlikely that there could be some, aggravated deposition of sediment down there, and together with the water level range, it's like the perfect pair of pants that you want to buy, but they're just a bit tight, and they're just, you try them on over and over, but they're just not getting any better. It's a complicated spot. It's a concern for me that it's not a permanent solution. Any other comments? Okay, none heard. We will go ahead then and bring this to vote. A mover and seconder, please.
Sorry,
Oh.
excuse me.
Yes.
It's Ian Marshall. I would like to speak to this.
Okay, Mr. Marshall, go ahead, please.
Yeah, and I'd like to address this in a very factual manner, please, because I think there's been a lot of, well, it's probably like this, or it might have been like that. I want to be fair and reasonable with our new neighbors, the Cosmos, right? I know what they want to accomplish, but I just think that there are some things that we could probably move out of the way to get a compliant dock rather than a quite non-compliant dock. So first, I'd like to just address some of the information that's been provided during this meeting and has not been part of a submission of any kind. I've had no opportunity to look at some of the data that the planning consultant is providing and so on. So anyway, I'm not going to complain. Let me just go through it. Thank you. First of all, there was a statement made that this is about the clearance required to dock a boat. I would like to remind the committee, and it's absolutely crystal clear from the first application made, this is just a revised application, so it's building on top of that, that this is more about a boat lift than it is about tying a boat to a dock. And Mr. Cosman was clear in his statements at the first Committee of Adjustment hearing on this matter that he was told he needed 1.22 meters depth for the boat lift he intended to install at the end of the dock. It's not about the inability to tie a boat to the dock. We don't even know the draft of the boat or the draft of his existing boat or the new boat that may be put in the dock. And water depths are very important there too. So anyway, I just want to remind the committee, and it's my respectful submission to all concerned, that this is about the installation of a boat lift to lift the boat out of the water, not to tie it to a dock.
Right.
The statement was made that I think, well, we've covered this, and I've lived the history of the previous owners. In fact, my wife's parents owned this property for about 50 or 60 years. And I've been a summer resident on the property, albeit maybe 5 years ago or so. And the previous owner installed the current dock. And to my knowledge, they never had a permit to do so. It was all part of the redevelopment of the property by the previous owners. So if there's a 17-meter dock, and I think we've all agreed it's a 5-meter extension anyway, it's not legal non-conforming or any such thing. We're talking about a 5-meter extension. There's no mistake about that. And in fact, the previous owner located the existing dock further to the east because of the water depth. Now, I think regrettably, the Cosmas wish to move it further to the west, at least at the base where the dock joins the shoreline, albeit with now a slight rotation to the east instead of extending straight out, which I do think is a good idea, ignoring the rest of the submissions I want to make, because that sediment has been coming into the bay between 38 and 40 Summit Drive for 50 years. It's not stopping. In fact, it's created a whole habitat for aquatic life. I know that because I live there in the summer. I've seen it. My daughters have caught the pikes in the weeds. So anyway, one of the counselors made a comment that many docks, structures at the waterfront are built along the shoreline to actually blend in with the contours. And I would absolutely agree with that statement. In fact, that is exactly the case on Cameron Bay. If you look at the recent additions of structures on the north side of the bay, people have built boathouses, but they're snug up against the shoreline with entrances into their dock, which parallel the shoreline, not extend straight out into the lake. And I would assume that is either of their own volition and some desire to blend in with the environment, or it was discussed with the Township of Seguin for the permissions granted on that north side for those new boathouses. And it's a good idea in my submission. Let me go back for a moment to the water depth data. And I can open the letter that I wrote to the committee for its review, and hopefully you've all had a chance to read it.
So yeah, Mr. Marshall, we do have your letter.
Okay, so that data, the water depth data that I got there is exactly from the data collection point for Lake Rosso at the dam at Port Carling. And as you would suspect, I mean, I'm not a hydromorphologist or whatnot, but water depth is the water depth in the entire lake. You know, it's not higher at one part than the other part. And the data from that MNRF Environment Canada station indicates clearly different information than in the IBW survey. It indicates that the water was in fact lower than IBW reports in its presentation. I think in the instances where we're making a decision in the public interest, it is not sufficient for this committee in my submission to say, well, IBW is a professional surveying firm, and so that's good enough. Because the data, there is an error here somewhere, and IBW is not even here to explain their methodology or how they collected it. And I don't want to appear to be nitpicking, but we're dealing with shallows. We're dealing with the shallow side of 38 Summit. And every inch, I figure, matters to somebody. The less depth there is in the water, the further the Cosmas will need to extend their dock to have the boat lift they desire. If you go to so there's two solutions to that. And I know I'm repeating myself a bit, but please forgive me. Move it to the east and get the right water depth. So we all know what we're talking about, and we can make a proper decision based on real data. The information that I took from that publicly available data from MNRF and the Environment Canada indicates they're in my letter. So I got a reading on March 31, 2024, June 30, 2024, and September 30, 2024. Most of us take our boats out of the water in October. But contrary to what the Planscape, Ms. Vandernacker is saying to us now, and I don't know where their chart came from. I don't know the source. I'm not able to check the source. Is it for Lake Rosso and so on and so forth? I'm assuming it's just an unexplained matter right now, which I think is important to the outcome of this application, and we need to get to the bottom of it. But on all of those dates, the water, let me just check my letter here, sorry. So if you take the water data found on that MNRF Environment Canada site and look at the contours of the lake bed, and I don't know if anyone's checked those or not, but I'm assuming they're true because they're used in this application. At the 224.61 contour, the actual depth was almost 2 meters, not 1.32 meters as shown on the IBW survey and stamped plan. So that's about 6.5 feet deep, where the planners and Planscape are indicating there's only 4 feet of water and that's what they need to get to. They say now to tie a boat, but frankly, it's to put a boat lift in. I think that's the truth of the matter. So because the water was data is indicated to be deeper than what I think in fact it was based on the data I present in my letter, the COSMAs, unfortunately, I think, are asking for a dock that's longer than it needs to be and in the wrong location. So solution would be, unfortunately, if you want a boat lift, don't have a boat lift in that location because that reduces the overall length of the dock required. That would have to be, looked into to determine exactly what it means, but we can't do that now on the back of a napkin. And so I pointed out the errors in the water depth and the water's edge calculation, because the water's edge is actually farther back than what IBW reports, according to the information I have from MNRF and Environment Canada from that water station. According to the Muskoka Water Management Plan, we all know it fluctuates. It's high in the spring. It goes down a bit in the summer. Generally, I agree with the comments made about the power companies will fluctuate and plan for events and so on and so forth, but gradually there's a drawdown in the lakes. And I believe it's true. Now, someone's made comments, Mr. Cosma did, about taking 20-year means and averages of depths on different dates, but we haven't seen any of that. So based on the 2024 data that I present, the lowest water level of the year is in September in the fall. And on the date in question, we had not more than about 225 meters in depth. Sorry, I'm just having trouble.
Yeah. Mr. Marshall, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
I think we get the message. I appreciate you put a lot of time into this. If you could wrap up with the key concerns, please.
Yeah, thank you. So to get to the point, and forget the scratching, but the dock site plan, I snip it, I put it in my letter, because it's clear on any water depth data that the depth is deeper as you go east, closer to the shoreline. So why why are we considering a longer dock when it can in fact be maybe compliant or at least closer to compliance if it moves to the east? Then I'd like to make a comment about the question the counselor said about, you know, the character of the lake. Because the character of the lake is very important for all residents, not just me, all of my neighbors that ejected, the neighbors to the west. And so are structures at the end of docks common? My friend was asked this question. And the answer, in good faith, was yes, it's very common amongst the lakes. So we're talking about Lake Muskoka, which has different zoning bylaws. We're talking about Lake Joe, they probably have different zoning bylaws, official plan requirements, and so on and so forth. It's not even in our jurisdiction to even know what others.
Mr. Marshall, I'm sorry, I have to interrupt one more time. If you could please wrap up, we do have
Okay, I
other
will with
applications.
this statement. I will with this statement. There are no boat lifts at the end of docks in Cameron Bay. Not one. Not one. This would be an exception. This, in my respectful submission, would be a change in the character of the waterfront and frankly, an eyesore from my point of view.
Okay, thank you, sir. You've given us a good deal of information. I will allow Debbie to respond, and then we will take this to a vote, please. We've been discussing for a while. Debbie, would you like to respond?
Through you? No, I don't think so. I think the water depth is actually probably a lot less important in terms of what we're actually looking at here. Mr. Marshall is absolutely correct. This is a variance. That's why we're here. It's a variance to the zoning bylaw. And whether it's east or west and the location chosen, what you really need to look at are the 4 tests of a minor variance and whether it's minor and the impact to the neighbors and those types of things. So I hope our reporting and the additional work that was done, and regardless if there's debate about the professional competency of the surveyor hired, this really ultimately comes down to this is a variance for the length of a dock, and you have all the information that we can provide for you to make that decision. So thank you.
Okay, thanks for that. So I will now call for this to be brought to vote, please. If I could have a mover and seconder. Moved by Wibb, seconded by Greg. That the Committee of Adjustment hereby approves variance application A-2024-0039-H for Cosma to construct a new dock, requesting a variance to the following sections of zoning bylaw 2006-125. Under bylaw section 4.28.2D, maximum length of a dock extending into a water body, permitted is 15 meters, proposed is 20. The variance requested is 5 meters. Subject to the following conditions: that the owner applies for and obtains a building permit for the dock extension within 3 years of the date of decision of the Committee of Adjustment. And number 2, the extent of the variance conforms to that shown on the submitted plans attached to the appendix of the decision. All in favor? The motion is defeated. We have no hands in favor.
The application has been denied. You will get a letter in the next few days notifying you of the decision, and the 20-day appeal period starts now.
I will ask the Secretary Treasurer to introduce the next application, please.
The purpose of minor variance application A 2025-0002H Dobson and Cavalieres is to demolish the existing cottage and construct a new dwelling with an attached garage requiring variances for lot coverage, gross floor area, and an exterior side yard setback. Correspondence was received from property owners at 128 Forest Glen Road.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Do we have someone presenting for the application?
Yes, hi, I'm the applicant's agent, Adam Lenny, the permit guy, 35 Covered Bridge Trail, Bracebridge, P1L 1Y1. Through
Go
you,
ahead,
Chair.
please.
Pardon me?
Sorry, yes, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Through you, Chair, and thank you for hearing us today. Thank you for your detailed presentation today. As mentioned, the previous minor variance deadline lapsed in December, and we've also changed from a rebuild and addition rather than a renovation and addition to a rebuild. With regards to the neighbors' comments, no trees along the property line will be disturbed. Only a few small saplings where the garage is proposed is what needs to be removed. All others will remain as is. With regards to the septic was replaced last year permitted through the Conservation Authority to accommodate the new structure, which has been installed and finalized with the township. We feel this is minor in nature, and we also agree to all the township's conditions. Thanks, and we're here if you have any questions.
Okay. Thank you. And questions from committee? Okay, none from committee. Anyone in attendance wish to speak from the online group? Okay, none seen. We'll bring this forward. Mover and seconder, please. Moved by Lee, seconded by Greg. That the Committee of Adjustment hereby approves variance application A-2025-0002-H for Dobson and Carlavaris to demolish the existing cottage and construct a new dwelling with an attached garage, requesting the following variances from zoning bylaw 2006-125. Under section 6.3, maximum lot coverage within 60 meters of the shoreline, 8% is required, proposed is 9%, for a variance of 1%. Under section 6.3, maximum dwelling gross floor area, bylaw requires 297.9 square meters, proposed is 324.8, for a variance of 26.9 square meters. And for, under the same section, for minimum exterior side yard setback from Goldfinch Road, 10 meters required as a minimum, proposed is 6.01, for variance of 3.99 meters, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, the extent of the variances conforms to that shown on the submitted plans attached to the appendix of the decision. And number 2, that the property owners apply for and obtain a building permit for the dwelling/garage within 3 years of the date of decision of the Committee of Adjustment. All in favor? And carried.
Thank you.
The application has been approved. You will get a letter in the next few days notifying you of the decision, and the 20-day appeal period starts now.
Okay, thanks. You can stay or you may go. Other business. A reminder to submit Q1 expense sheets. I saw a couple come across the table. I haven't done mine yet. Anything else under other business? Okay. Then I will look for a motion to adjourn, moved by Len, seconded by Lee. That the Committee of Adjustment for the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby adjourn this hearing at 4:53 p.m. on Wednesday, March the 12th, 2025. Committee will hold its next hearing at 4 p.m. on Wednesday, April the 9th, 2025, or at the call of the chair, unless the Secretary Treasurer has not received complete applications for committee consideration. All in favor? And carried. Thank you, folks.